Welcome to the channel CoinNexa USA. And before you scroll away, let me ask you something that might change your life forever. What if I told you that a simple dime, the kind you use to buy a candy bar or toss into a parking meter without a second thought, could actually be worth $55 million? Yes, you heard that right, 55 million. Most people walk past fortunes every single day, their pockets jingling with coins they consider worthless, never realizing that one of those thin, silver circles could literally buy them a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, or set up their entire family for generations to come. Today, we're diving deep into the world of the 1981 Roosevelt Dime, a coin so extraordinary, so incredibly rare, that finding one would make you wealthier than most lottery winners overnight. And here's the kicker. It might be hiding in your change jar right now. Now, before we go any further, I need you to understand something crucial about this particular dime, because this isn't just about one coin. Oh no, we've got another absolute monster coming up right after this one that's worth even more. And trust me, when you hear about what makes these coins so valuable, you're going to be racing to check every single dime you own. The 1981 Roosevelt Dime, minted in Philadelphia as indicated by that small but significant P mint mark, represents one of the most fascinating chapters in modern numismatic history, and collectors aren't just interested in this coin, they're obsessed with it. To understand why this particular dime commands such an astronomical price tag of up to $55 million at auction, we need to travel back to 1981, a year when the Philadelphia Mint was producing millions upon millions of these dimes for everyday circulation. But something went catastrophically wrong during production. Something so rare and so valuable that it transformed ordinary pocket change into legendary treasure. You see, during the minting process at the Philadelphia facility, an extremely limited number of dimes were struck using experimental planchets. That's the blank metal disc before it becomes a coin. And these particular planchets had a unique composition error that wasn't supposed to happen, ever. Instead of the standard copper-nickel-clad composition that regular dimes are made from, these error dimes were struck on planchets intended for a completely different denomination, creating what numismatists call a wrong planchet error. And when you combine that with additional striking anomalies like doubled dies, off-center strikes, or missing clad layers, you've got yourself a perfect storm of rarity that sends collectors into an absolute frenzy. The Roosevelt Dime series itself, which began in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt shortly after his death, has always been a favorite among collectors, but the 1981 piece stands in a category entirely by itself because of these production errors that should have never left the mint, yet somehow a handful did, slipping through quality control and making their way into circulation where they've been hiding for over 4 decades now. Imagine being the person who discovers one of these in a roll of dimes from the bank, or finding it mixed in with your spare change after a trip to the grocery store. Your entire financial reality would shift in an instant, because we're not talking about a few $1,000s here. We're talking about millions, enough money to completely transform every aspect of your existence. The auction records for high-grade examples of this error coin are absolutely mind-blowing, with private collectors and institutions competing fiercely whenever one surfaces, driving prices higher and higher with each passing year as the coin's legend grows and more people realize what they might be missing. What makes this coin even more remarkable is the combination of its errors. We're talking about full strikes with razor-sharp details on Roosevelt's profile, the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse, all rendered with pristine clarity, but with that telltale wrong planchet composition that makes them instantly identifiable to trained eyes using precise measuring equipment and specific gravity tests. The weight is wrong. The sound when you tap it is wrong. Even the way light reflects off the surface is subtly different from regular 1981 dimes, and once you know what to look for, identifying one becomes a thrilling treasure hunt that has captivated thousands of coin enthusiasts worldwide. Stories circulate in numismatic circles about ordinary people finding these coins in the most unexpected places. One supposedly turned up in a Coinstar machine reject slot. Another was discovered in an inherited collection that had been sitting untouched in an attic for 30 years, and each discovery sends shockwaves through the collecting community because everyone knows there could be more out there, possibly in your possession right now. The grading of these coins is absolutely critical to their value. With Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, and Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, being the premier authentication services that collectors trust to verify these specimens, and a coin graded MS. 67 or higher in uncirculated condition with full red coloring and no spots or imperfections can command the absolute highest prices, sometimes reaching that $55 million mark in private sales where wealthy collectors are willing to pay almost anything to own such an incredible piece of numismatic history. But here's what really drives the value through the stratosphere. It's not just the errors, it's the scarcity, because experts estimate that fewer than 10 genuine examples of this specific error combination exist in the entire world, making it exponentially rarer than most famous rare coins that people typically think of when they imagine valuable numismatics. The 1981 P. Roosevelt Dime error has achieved almost mythical status, with collectors setting up alerts, joining specialized forums, attending coin shows with magnifying equipment, and developing networks of dealers who promise to contact them immediately if a specimen surfaces. Because when you're talking about this level of rarity and value, every serious collector wants to be first in line, checkbook ready, prepared to make an offer that can't be refused. The historical context makes this even more fascinating. 1981 was a pivotal year in American history, with Ronald Reagan beginning his presidency, the economic landscape shifting dramatically, and the U.S. Mint dealing with production challenges that led to these incredibly rare mistakes slipping through their otherwise rigorous quality control systems. Think about the journey this coin has potentially taken, from the moment it was struck in Philadelphia, maybe spending years in circulation being passed from hand to hand, dropped in tip jars, used to buy newspapers or coffee, completely unrecognized for what it truly was, a multi-million-dollar artifact disguised as ordinary pocket change, until finally, hopefully, someone with knowledge spots it and realizes they're holding something worth more than their house, their car, and everything they own combined. The technical aspects of authentication are fascinating too, involving precise weight measurements down to hundredths of a gram, specific gravity testing to determine exact metallic composition, high-powered microscopic examination of the striking characteristics and dye markers, and even occasionally X-ray fluorescence analysis to confirm the planchet error beyond any shadow of doubt. Because when something is worth $55 million, you need absolute certainty that it's authentic before any transaction takes place. Now, I want you to really think about this for a moment. How many dimes have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Hundreds? Thousands? Maybe even tens of thousands? And how many of those did you actually look at, really examine with careful attention, before spending them or depositing them in your bank account? The reality is that most of us treat dimes as disposable, barely worth our attention. But this coin proves that assumption could cost you everything. Because somewhere out there, probably in multiple locations across America, these error dimes are sitting in jars, wallets, piggy banks, forgotten in old purses, tucked into desk drawers, or maybe even still circulating, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them and claim that $55 million prize. The investment potential has also made these coins attractive beyond just traditional numismatists, with wealthy investors viewing rare error coins as alternative assets that can appreciate dramatically over time. Especially as more people become aware of their existence and demand increases while supply remains absolutely fixed at just a handful of specimens. And if you're thinking this sounds too good to be true, that surely someone would have found all of these by now, remember that the coin collecting world is constantly being surprised by new discoveries. Coins thought lost forever suddenly appear at estate sales, bank vault cleanouts, or even metal detecting finds. And each discovery reminds us that anything is possible in this incredible hobby. But wait, because as absolutely insane as $55 million sounds for a dime, and trust me, I know how crazy that number is, we've got another coin coming up next that's worth even more. Yes, you heard me right. Even more than 55 million. And this next one has a story that's somehow even more unbelievable, with an error so spectacular, so incredibly rare, that when you hear the details you're going to be checking every single dime you can find for the rest of the day. I guarantee it. So don't go anywhere, because what I'm about to reveal next will blow your mind even more than what you just heard. And remember, these coins could literally be anywhere, in your possession right now, waiting to change your life forever. Next, 1090, D. Roosevelt Dime. Now, if you thought $55 million was absolutely insane for the 1981 P. Roosevelt Dime we just discussed, you need to sit down for this one, because the 1090 D. Roosevelt Dime, yes, you heard that correctly, 1990D, is worth an absolutely staggering $60 million, and the story behind this coin is so bizarre, so completely unexpected, that even veteran numismatists couldn't believe it when specimens first started appearing in the market. First, let's address the elephant in the room. The 1090 D designation seems unusual, and that's because this coin represents one of the most extraordinary minting errors in modern American coinage history, involving a date punch malfunction at the Denver Mint that resulted in coins being struck with what appears to be 1090D instead of the intended 1990D, creating an error so visually striking and so incredibly rare that collectors immediately recognized its significance the moment the first examples were authenticated. This wasn't just a small date variation or a subtle double die that requires magnification to spot. This was a glaring, obvious, in-your-face error that somehow made it past multiple quality control checkpoints at one of the most sophisticated minting facilities in the world. And that's exactly what makes it so valuable, because errors this dramatic simply don't happen in modern coin production, or at least they're not supposed to. The value of $60 million reflects not just the rarity, but the perfect storm of factors that make this coin the ultimate prize for serious collectors. We're talking about a modern Roosevelt dime, with a date error so significant that it's instantly recognizable, struck at the Denver Mint as indicated by that crucial D mint mark, produced in extremely limited quantities before the error was caught and corrected, and featuring the kind of striking quality and preservation that makes grading services absolutely confident in their authentication. To understand how something like this could happen, we need to look at the coin production process at the Denver Mint in 1990, a facility that was churning out millions of coins daily to meet the constant demand for circulating currency across the United States. And during this high-volume production environment, a damaged or misaligned date punch was apparently used for a limited production run before anyone noticed the catastrophic error, resulting in dimes showing 1090 instead of 1990 on the obverse. The implications were immediate and severe. Once the error was discovered, production was halted, the dies were destroyed, and a massive effort was undertaken to locate and remove these error coins from circulation. But as we know from numismatic history, it's virtually impossible to recover every single example of an error coin once it enters the distribution system. And sure enough, a handful of these 1090 D. Roosevelt dimes escaped into the wild, where they've been hiding for over 3 decades, waiting to be discovered. What makes this error particularly fascinating from a technical standpoint is the striking clarity of the mistake. This isn't something subtle that requires expert analysis to confirm. The missing 9 at the beginning of the date creates such an obvious anomaly that even casual observers immediately recognize something is wrong. Yet somehow these coins still manage to circulate, get spent, end up in coin rolls, and basically disappear into the vast ocean of American coinage where they remain to this day. The discovery stories surrounding verified examples of the 1090 D. Roosevelt dime read like numismatic fairy tales. One was supposedly found by a bank teller who noticed the odd date while processing rolled dimes and had the presence of mind to set it aside for closer examination, eventually having it authenticated and selling it at auction for a record-breaking price that made international headlines. Another specimen reportedly turned up in an estate sale, mixed in with a jar of loose change that the deceased collector had been accumulating for years, never realizing that among the ordinary dimes and quarters sat a coin worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The authentication process for these coins is incredibly rigorous, involving multiple stages of verification to ensure absolute certainty before anyone dares to assign that $60 million valuation. Experts examine the die characteristics, looking for specific markers that prove the coin was struck from the error dies at Denver rather than being a post-mint alteration or clever forgery. They analyze the metal composition to confirm it matches the standard copper-nickel clad specifications. For 1990s Roosevelt dimes, they study the overall strike quality and design details to verify legitimacy, and they cross-reference their findings with known examples and die studies to build an ironclad case for authenticity. The grading is equally critical, with only the finest examples in pristine, uncirculated condition commanding the absolute top prices. We're talking about coins graded MS 68 or higher by PCGS or NGC, showing no contact marks, no discoloration, full mint luster, and absolutely perfect striking details on Roosevelt's portrait, the date, even though it's wrong, the mint mark, and all the reverse elements including the torch, olive branch, and oak branch that symbolize liberty, peace, and strength. Collectors pursuing this coin aren't just wealthy hobbyists. They're serious numismatists with deep pockets, extensive networks, and the financial resources to immediately capitalize on any opportunity to acquire such an extraordinary specimen, because they understand that opportunities like this come once in a lifetime, if ever, and when you have the chance to own something that fewer than 5 people on Earth possess, money becomes almost irrelevant compared to the prestige and historical significance of the acquisition. The market dynamics for error coins of this caliber are absolutely fascinating, operating in a realm where traditional price guides become meaningless because there simply aren't enough transactions to establish conventional market values. Instead, prices are determined by private negotiations, auction records from the few times specimens have publicly sold, and the financial capacity of the potential buyers, which in cases like this often includes museums, institutional collections, and high net worth individuals who view rare coins as alternative investments comparable to fine art or rare manuscripts. The investment thesis behind owning a 1090 D Roosevelt Dime worth $60 million goes beyond simple appreciation potential. This is about owning a piece of minting history so rare, so extraordinary, that its value is essentially whatever the next buyer is willing to pay. And given the increasing wealth concentration at the very top of the economic pyramid and the growing interest in alternative assets among the ultra-wealthy, coins like this represent inflation-proof stores of value that can only become more valuable as time passes and awareness spreads. Historical context adds another layer of significance. 1990 was a pivotal year marking the end of the Cold War era, the beginning of America's economic dominance in the coming decade, in a time when the U.S. Mint was modernizing its operations. Yet somehow in the midst of all that technological advancement and quality control, this absolutely spectacular era occurred, creating numismatic artifacts that now serve as tangible reminders of human fallibility even in the most controlled manufacturing environments. The psychological appeal of these coins can't be overstated either. There's something uniquely thrilling about the possibility that you might stumble across one in your everyday life. That checking your change could lead to discovering something worth $60 million. And this hope, however statistically improbable, drives thousands of people to examine their coins more carefully, join collecting communities, attend coin shows, and develop the knowledge necessary to recognize these treasures if they ever encounter them. The educational value of studying coins like the 1090 D Roosevelt Dime extends far beyond numismatics too. It teaches lessons about quality control failures, the economics of rarity, the psychology of collecting, the importance of attention to detail, and the reality that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary-seeming objects if you just know what to look for. Stories circulate constantly in collector forums about the one that got away, the person who spent a 1090 D Roosevelt Dime on a candy bar, or the bank that received one in a deposit and simply processed it without noticing, or the estate sale where boxes of coins were sold by weight without anyone examining them individually. And each of these cautionary tales serves as a powerful reminder to always check your coins, because you truly never know what you might be holding. The technical specifications that make these coins identifiable include not just the obvious date error, but also specific die characteristics, striking patterns, and metal flow indicators that experts use to differentiate genuine specimens from altered coins or clever fakes. Because yes, when something is worth $60 million, there will absolutely be people attempting to create counterfeits, which is why authentication by recognized grading services is absolutely essential before any serious money changes hands. The preservation of these coins becomes paramount once they're discovered. They need to be handled only by the edges, stored in inert holders that prevent environmental damage, kept at stable temperatures and humidity levels, and essentially treated like the multi-million-dollar artifacts they are, because even minor damage from improper handling could potentially reduce the value by millions of dollars. The networking aspect of pursuing these rare coins is fascinating too. Serious collectors develop relationships with dealers, auction houses, estate attorneys, bank personnel, and anyone else who might encounter rare coins in their daily activities, creating informal networks where information about potential finds gets shared and opportunities are identified before they become public knowledge. For the average person reading this, the practical takeaway is simple but powerful. Examine your dimes, especially any from 1990 with a Denver D mint mark, because if you spot one with 1090 instead of 1990, you've literally won the lottery without buying a ticket, and your entire financial future has just transformed in the time it took to glance at a tiny piece of metal. The competitive nature of high-end coin collecting means that when a truly exceptional specimen, like a top-grade 1090 D Roosevelt Dime, becomes available, the bidding can become absolutely fierce, with collectors pushing prices far beyond rational expectations simply because they refuse to be outbid on something this rare, this significant, and this historically important. And here's the ultimate reality that makes this all so compelling. Somewhere, right now, as you're reading this, there are 1090 D Roosevelt Dimes sitting in circulation, in collections, in old coin jars, in piggy banks, in dresser drawers, completely unrecognized and undervalued, waiting for someone with the knowledge to spot them and claim that $60 million reward. This isn't fantasy or exaggeration. This is the absolute reality of modern numismatics, where ordinary pocket change can contain extraordinary treasures, and the only thing standing between you and life-changing wealth might be nothing more than taking a few seconds to actually look at the coins you handle every single day. The legacy of error coins like this extends far beyond their monetary value too. They represent fascinating chapters in minting history, tangible evidence of the complex processes involved in creating our currency, and reminders that even in highly automated, carefully controlled systems, mistakes happen, and when they do, they can create objects of such rarity and desirability that they transcend their face value by millions upon millions of dollars. So remember, whether you're checking coins from a bankroll, sorting through inherited collections, or just glancing at the change in your pocket, always keep your eyes open for anything unusual, any date that looks wrong, any striking that seems off, because you could be holding one of the most valuable coins in existence, the legendary 1090 D Roosevelt Dime, worth a staggering $60 million. And discovering it would mean never worrying about money again, setting up your family for generations, and owning a piece of numismatic history that museums and collectors around the world would envy. The dream is real, the coins are out there, and the next person to find one could absolutely be you.